Hey all, Zook here with another boss guide for Dark Souls 2. This time, we'll take a look at the Lost Sinner, who guards the primal bonfire in the Lost Bastille. She can be a bit of a tough fight since she gives really few opportunities to heal, and she has some pretty questionable hitboxes on one attack in particular. So, in this video, I'm going to show you how to fight her up close with melee, and how to take her out using sorceries as well. Now, before you get too far into the video, I will mention both strategies that I'm going to show are assuming that the light has been turned on in the room, which lets your character maintain a locked on camera at much further distances than would be possible in the dark room. And I'm assuming if you're watching a boss guide, then you probably want every resource available to make the fight easier, which means you want to turn the lights on. So with that, let's take a quick look at her stats before jumping into the Sinner's moveset and some example fights. As far as elemental strengths and weaknesses, the Sinner is going to be weak to magic damage, and she'll resist any sort of fire. Slash, strike, and thrust all seem to work equally well, so use whichever type of weapon you prefer. For my personal buffs, I'll use some aromatic ooze on my weapon, and I personally choose to use a bright bug here, but it certainly isn't necessary. As for inventory items, I'll keep life gems in the active use slot, and I'll use a flame butterfly to light up the room before the fight even begins. For my weapon setup, if I'm going with a melee build, I'll normally have my rapier upgrade to at least +5 at this point, and possibly even further depending on which areas I unlocked before venturing down to Sinner's Rise. Then I make sure that my rings are set by equipping the normal 4: Chloranthy, Blades, Leo, and either the stone ring or the silver serpent. The stone ring isn't going to make much difference here because you'll kill her before you break her poise. And as mentioned in other videos, if you do have Flynn's ring, then that would also be my recommendation for the 4th slot. That's just if you've gone into the DLC or not. So if you do plan on using a ranged method, I'd recommend using sorceries, as the boss is weakest to magic. For my fight, I'll be using a witch tree branch and just normal soul arrows. You might consider putting a rapier in your offhand also, just because one of our dodges is going to put us close to the boss. So if you do still want to punish that, then you'd want to have a rapier or something quick. Since the boss is really fast, I would also recommend the Lion Mage set and the clear bluestone ring, both that you can get from Shaded Woods. Just because the extra casting speed that you get from both of those is really going to come in handy against a boss as quick as this one, since she can skip her wind-up sometimes. But with all of this setup information out of the way, let's go ahead and take a look at the relatively simple moveset of this boss, and then 2 example fights. Alright, so let's go ahead and take a look at the sorcery fight first. So with this sorcery fight, we are going to want to, again, light up the sconces on both sides. So if you don't know exactly how to do that, I always use a flame butterfly. You can pick them up several different places, especially around the Shaded Woods. just because if I use a flame butterfly, I don't have to worry about the torch going out if I tried to bring it down here from the bonfire. The other thing to mention is the Bastille key, which you can get after the Ruined Sentinels. Bastille key is what unlocks these doors, so keep an eye out for that. But as we watch me light up these sconces on the left side here and the right side in a second, I'll take this moment to go over the general strategy for this fight. Overall, idea is just roll backwards for everything, or at least sideways, to dodge every attack except for the running stab. The running stab, you need to roll forward into her, and I roll forward right away from the sword as well to avoid its lingering hitbox if you just rolled straight backwards. Be careful about the roll as well. Try not to do it too early because the stab attack does track the character. So it's like it tracks up until she actually thrusts the weapon forward. So try to learn that timing. But as I go into this fight, you're going to see her immediately jump. Ideally, you roll straight backwards to create distance from the possible follow-ups that you're going to see right here. But the locked on camera sometimes unlocks on jumps, so just be careful. Try to roll backwards as much as you can. But right here, you're going to see me punish in an unsafe position. So I dodged the charge, as you just saw me do right there, by rolling into her non-sword side. But even creating distance that way, she's going to recover super quick. And if that had been her quick stab instead of a swiping attack, I would have been hit for sure. So when I say quick stab, watch right here. So notice it looks like her running stab, and that's because it is her running stab. It's just one of the things that it can happen with the coding of this game. She can actually skip the charge part of her charging running stab. It happens with old Dragon Slayer and a couple other bosses that have these charging running attacks. They can skip the wind up animation and basically just give you like 2 frames to react to the fact that they're about to stab straight in front of them. So I always try to maintain at least 1.5 rolls worth of distance just to make sure that she has to actually run and kind of telegraph what she's about to do before she actually gets to me and tries to do that quick stab attack. So other thing to mention, because heal punishing is something huge with this boss because it's super mobile, just anytime when you see me cast a spell, that's an opportunity where if you needed to pop a life gem, you could do that. I recommend using life gems more so than Estus flasks just because you can still strafe backwards slowly with a life gem, as opposed to Estus flasks, you're stuck in the same spot, which you might not be completely out of range when you start to heal. But as you can see, the fight's just rolling backwards on punishing when it's safe. So for the melee method, which you're going to see here in just a second, pretty much the same idea, except you're going to roll backwards to avoid her attacks, but then punish by rolling into her attacks, or at least the end of her combo, to actually punish. So while it does waste stamina to roll backwards and roll forwards and attack, what you're going to end up seeing is that she can track a bit with her third attacks, so any of her slams or stabs do quite a bit of tracking on the player character. So what I'm going to do is roll backwards, roll forward after I'm sure that her slam's not going to hit me, and just punish once. So I only punish once because, as you see there, she leaps away super quick. And also if I try to punish her twice, which you're going to see in a second, so punish once, but instead of leaping away, she just quickly resets. If I had tried to go for a second, I wouldn't have had enough stamina to actually roll out of the way. So just one punish, conserve your stamina, and you should be fine. Just kind of taking it slow and steady. She doesn't have a huge health bar, especially if your rapier is upgraded a decent amount or your melee weapon's upgraded a decent amount. She really has a small health pool. So just don't panic. Roll backward if you need to heal up, and try not to let her heal punish you. But in my opinion, honestly, this fight is kind of like a watered down version of either Artorias or Ornstein from the first game. It's one where you got to be patient about when to heal. You need to be precise about how you dodge, but as long as you don't get greedy with your stamina and you give it time to regen, the fight itself has a certain kind of like dancing feel to it where you got to give a little bit, you take a little bit. And I understand why you don't normally see this boss in most any percent runs. It certainly caused me to shout aloud many times, but under it all, honestly, I really like this boss fight. Like it's got a good feel to it. At least until you hit NG+. If you're watching this because you're having trouble in New Game Plus, use Profound Still. So with that, have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.